You're not supposed to be here.
Half-Life Echoes is an extremely satisfying experience for just 3 hours of gameplay. 5 years in the making from a first-time modder, Echoes offers you a new perspective on the Black Mesa incident. You play from the perspective of an unnamed scientist arriving seemingly just after the resonance cascade. Your character attempts to navigate through the facility all the while the alien presence increases until the lab is thrown into utter chaos. This mod does atmosphere very well. There's so many Half-Life mods that try way too hard to be scary, but Echoes does a great job at surprising you and making you feel uncomfortable, whether you're alone or surrounded by aliens. The mod's map design keeps it new and exciting while still reminiscent of the Black Mesa facility. There's lots of tight corners, darkness and ambient music, used to make the facility appear much darker and threatening than it was originally. Considering the length and quality of a mod, it's more like you're playing an expansion like Blue Shift or Opposing Force, rather than just a regular mod. It really is like you're playing Half-Life except for a few things. The story you experience is a lot more cryptic, relying on visual storytelling since a few voice lines of characters in the mod are recycled from the original game. You're experiencing the behind the scenes of what happened at Black Mesa, meeting the G-Man and Zen creatures often, and this leads to a unique and mysterious plot, which I'll touch on in the end, although I recommend you experience it for yourself. The game alternates between dark and claustrophobic corridors where you need to solve a puzzle or navigate dangerous vent systems, to large and open areas dedicated to slaughtering aliens and soldiers. And it makes for an amazing combination. The game has barely any downtime, it's about half the playtime of Half-Life itself, so there's barely any occasions where you have nothing interesting to do. The game goes from feeling like Penumbra to Doom on multiple occasions, and since it's so succinct, there's always a new puzzle or room to fight in. When you're a bit tired with solving a physics puzzle, you get to fight through a gauntlet of Vortigaunts and Grunts. And although Half-Life isn't exactly an easy game, this mod has some real challenging fights in comparison. I felt myself constantly bunny hopping and strafing around a room to avoid shots from a dozen different enemies, while Half-Life is a bit slower paced in comparison. I rarely had the chance to rely on cover in this mod due to the constant overwhelming odds. There were a few occasions where I got a bit lost or confused by a puzzle, but in typical Half-Life fashion, the solution would reveal itself if you looked hard enough. And the only thing even remotely resembling a bug was that I had some difficulty getting NPCs to travel through loading zones, but that just took some patience. There were some comments mentioning crashes, but running Half-Life through Steam on Windows 10, I had none at all personally. There's not much else to talk about except the story, so if you want to save up for yourself, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoy the mod. But now we're going to get into some spoilers. Most of the story is cryptically received through your experiences with the G-Man and from various Zen creatures. My understanding of Half-Life lore isn't amazing, but from my interpretation, your character, just like Gordon Freeman, is a subject being used and evaluated by the G-Man. The game says that much itself at the opening. You're a candidate, you're being used by the G-Man, but you're also being influenced by these Zen creatures, like how the Nihilanth tries to influence Gordon. You get some vague dialogue from both the G-Man and the Zen aliens, up until you defeat the Gargantuan at the end. The scene then fades to black. You see the G-Man, a dead Mossman, Gordon and Alex on the Borealis. This is the Aperture science ship mentioned throughout Half-Life 2, which is suspected of large-scale teleportation. Given the scene is set somewhere in space, I'd say this is true. The G-Man goes and says,
Well, isn't this just like old times? We've been rather busy in your absence, Mr. Freeman.
Which I guess suggests this happens right after Gordon is put into stasis by the G-Man in Half-Life. Keep in mind though that the modder is working with pre-existing lines, so he has to work with pretty limited dialogue from the G-Man. I'm going to assume that this place is just some place where time stands still, or there's time travel, or something else involved. There's a lot of possibilities to explain this, and going over all of them would take ages, so let's move on. You then teleported to Black Mesa housing with narration of Eli Vance talking about his wife and daughter. You come across the G-Man, who while talking to you, a Zen creature takes what is likely Alex Vance. We know that the G-Man at some point later rescues her for his own benefit, but here is the end of your character's story. Dying in an explosion at the facility, you are determined unsuitable for employment due to being susceptible to external influence. It shows 3 other candidates, 1 extracted, 1 hired, and 1 detained. Obviously 1 is Gordon, 1 could be Alex, and the other could be anyone really. You are candidate number 12 though, so clearly there's a lot more happening than we see as well. I could go on for hours theorizing what this all means, but given how the Half-Life series itself is extremely cryptic, it's hard for me at least to ascertain what the meaning of it all is. Just that from your perspective, you learn of the unforeseen consequences a bit which the G-Man speaks of. You fail in your mission, I assume because you distract the G-Man accidentally while Alex is taken. And that's it for this video. Half-Life Echoes is a great, short and succinct mod, telling you a story that shows a bit more of what occurred after the Resonance Cascade. If you understand the ending more than me, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. This mod was made by James Cockburn over 5 years. It's his first mod ever, and for that it's extremely impressive, especially compared to other Half-Life projects, especially the ones which you had to pay for. I feel this mod does Half-Life a lot more justice. It tries to make sense of the story a bit more, and for that, I think it did a really good job. I'll be back next time with another Modlight. And I'd also like to let you know that I usually try to stream the mods that I intend to make videos on, so check out my Twitch if you're interested. Liking and subscribing is much appreciated. I hope you enjoyed, and have a great day.